Good evening, I'm Jacob Pyle. For this Labor Day weekend, we do not have a guest with me in the studio this week. Instead, because of your reactions and comments to it, we are going to replay my conversation with Horner Automation Group Manager Chuck Ridgeway. The show will be presented as it was originally aired, complete with Paul Poteet's original introduction. Have a happy Labor Day. And now, without further ado, my conversation with Chuck Ridgeway. Enjoy.
Live on tape from our studios in Fishers, Indiana. This is Night Talk, a 30-minute unscripted discussion featuring guests from all over Central Indiana. With tonight's guest, Advanced Technology Manager Chuck Ridgeway, and the moderator of Night Talk, Jacob Pyle.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Paul Poteet. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. Well, wherever you may be. My name is Jacob Pyle, and I welcome you to Night Talk. The guest that is here with me already know about this, but just for the sake of the viewers at home who are watching the show for the first time, for the next 30 minutes, unscripted conversations, but with a difference. No shouting, no cussing, nothing but respectful conversations on the show. All topics that we're discussing on the show have been approved by me before the show taping. My guest for tonight is an application engineer who loves to talk about automation and new technologies in the industry. He is currently an automation manager for Horner Automation. Would you please welcome to the show, Chuck Ridgeway.
All right.
Chuck, thank you for dropping by. So, automation manager sounds like an interesting profession. What do you do as an automation manager?
So, let me talk a little bit about the company first real quick, and that'll give some, perspective on what an automation manager is.
That's fine.
So, I work for Horner Automation, and, we've all seen commercials on TV, with robots, making cars and stacking boxes and those sorts of things. And we don't do robots at Horner Automation, but we do products that are programmable logic controllers is what we do. And those, just like a robot, when a customer buys a robot, it doesn't automatically start, making cars or stacking boxes. Whoever buys the robot has to program it to do that. So that requires expertise, right? So our product is a programmable logic controller. It's kind of the heart of what automates a whole variety of things out there in the world. And when we ship it, it doesn't do anything until one of our programmers, or one of our customers basically programs and sets it up to do its thing. So that's kind of the automation type world that we live in. We provide components that our customers use to automate all kinds of great stuff. And then an automation manager, really my job at this stage in my career is I'm really all about educating our customer base on a really technical product, and mostly doing it online through YouTube type videos, and also promoting the products through trade shows and conferences and those sorts of things. Okay. So that's kind of what being an automation manager is all about for me.
Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about the new automation technology that you guys have.
Sure.
Tell us about that.
Sure. So what we specialize in are, I mentioned the fact there are components called programmable logic controllers, but we do something a little bit different than a typical programmable logic controller manufacturer, is we put screens on all of our products. Everybody uses phones, they're used to using phones, and so what we do is we take kind of the brains of the machine and we put a touch screen on the front and we make that one component, and then by having everything all put together in one piece, it makes it a lot easier for customers to basically just about automate anything. So the types of things we're doing these days, besides just integrating all the components together to make them easier to automate products, is we're starting to take a look at artificial intelligence as a future type addition to the product line. That's something that'll be coming in the next few years. And really the other thing is just making it easier to connect machines through our product to the internet. Because the whole Internet of Things and getting more people and machines connected, has some benefits.
All right. I am a technology savvy.
Okay.
And so when you talk about touch screens and things like that,
right.
Are you talking about like everyday items that we use? Your cell phones, basically anything that can be used to touch or interact with the screen itself?
Sure. The touchscreens that we apply to our products, they work the same way as the touchscreens on your phones and other everyday products. But they're a little more ruggedized because a lot of times they're being used in a really tough environment. You know, maybe a front end loader that is being automated, or maybe in a stadium environment or outdoors. So they're a little more ruggedized, but they're still your basic touchscreen. And the benefit of the fact that the touchscreen is being used is everybody knows how to use a touchscreen these days. So there's a lot less teaching that has to be done in terms of how to use the product when the product comes with its own touchscreen. And in some cases, it can even play help videos right on the product. So the customer who's using an ice cream machine or something else that's built around this piece of automation, if they need to know how to use the machine or how to clean the machine, sometimes the videos are right there on board on the screen that they can use to get out of trouble.
All right. Another example I should mention too. If you guys ever walked into a McDonald's, and nowadays, well, back in the old days, you would actually, and I think you still can. You can go up to the cash register, the counter, and you can order food. But now, it's like, I remember the McDiners. They used to have these phones that were attached to the wall, and then you would order, similar to or Pizza King is another example of that.
Sure.
But now McDonald's has McDonald's, I think Taco Bell has these new fast food kiosks now, where you can actually, without having to say a single word, you can just kind of punch in your order and then you're good to go. What are your thoughts on those?
That's just another way for people to use automation. A lot of people prefer the personal touch, I guess, of interfacing with humans. Right. And that's not ever going to completely go away. But, there's something to be said for folks. One thing that's amazing to me, you go to the grocery store, for instance, and they have maybe 3 or 4 lanes open that aren't all that busy, but yet you have people lining up to basically check themselves out. So it's just, sometimes people prefer that approach because I guess maybe it's kind of the reason why some people like to drive instead of ride in a car, because they want to feel like they're in control. When they're using a piece of, a kiosk like that, or they're checking out their groceries, they feel like they're doing it themselves and they're in control. And then I think some people, for whatever reason, they just aren't that comfortable in interfacing with people a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm mostly well. Here's the thing with me. I when I hear certain sounds, I get seizures.
Okay.
So sometimes, like if I'm at, say, a Walmart or a Kroger or something like that, and I always will use like those self checkouts.
Sure.
All the time. That way I'm not having to interact with other humans and stuff like that, and I can just do it all through the machine.
Right.
But I know a lot of people nowadays, of course, like you said, that prefer the old-fashioned way. The old-fashioned way, have someone scan your products for you and put them in the bag and things like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wide range of people, different preferences, and also different ages, right? People that grew up with more of dealing with people in the checkout lane, and they're just more comfortable with that. Whereas people of different age and maybe different.
So like say maybe people in my age or younger will prefer the new technology, while people your age or older will probably prefer actually someone else doing it for them.
That seems to be the trend, but I think also part of it is also maybe to do with your personality. Like there's some people that they kind of go, and they always feel like they can do it better, So if I'm in control of checking myself out, there's nobody else to blame but me if I'm slow. One of those.
Exactly.
So some of it could be personality related as well. It's not all, I don't think, age related.
All right. Let's talk about some current industry trends.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the current industry trends?
Sure. So one thing about industry, when you're talking automation and industry, I love technology like everybody else does, but there's technology for the consumer that's kind of on the cutting edge of things. And there's technology in industry which tends to lag a little behind that, and here's why. When one of the things that you can automate is just let's say the Fisher's water system. They're providing fresh water for their citizens, and when they invest in automating their water system, they're not expecting a piece of equipment to be installed for 2 or 3 years. They're thinking 10, 15, 20 years, right?
Right.
So in that type of environment, you're not always buying the bleeding edge of technology because, one, it's not needed, and secondly, you want to play it a little bit safe to be sure that you've got something proven. So that being said, there is new technology that's being applied in industry. It's just not as fast as you might see it on the consumer world. Examples. We've seen these VR headsets, right? Mm-hmm. Probably the best application I've seen for VR headsets in the industrial world would be for electricians to be able to wire panels more quickly because of, they can see what they need to do next and they can react more fast. That's one example.
All right, I have to pause right there because we got to take a break. When we come back, more with Chuck Ridgeway. Stay with us. Welcome back to Night Talk. I'm here with Chuck Ridgeway, Automation Manager at Horner Technologies, and when we had to take our first break, you were talking about some of the current industry trends.
Exactly. So, and I was talking about the fact that industry tends to lag behind consumer just because there's a little more conservatism and a need to make sure that everything is proven before it gets used too much. So I talked about the fact that VR headsets, which are all the rage with gamers, there's some application of those, for instance, in industry with electricians using that so they can kind of see in a panel that may have 100 wires that need to be wired, what the next one is that you need to wire, and it goes from point A to point B, and they can do their job faster. That's an example. But there's some other areas, I started to mention this earlier, I think in the first segment. Artificial intelligence, of course, is all the rage, artificial intelligence, and it's going to work its way into the industrial realm, and at Horner we are looking at ways to apply that in our future products. But it's going to take a few years before it's really the mainstream of the industrial world, but it's definitely on its way, for sure. Something that's a little bit closer to that, I also touched on earlier, and that is getting more equipment, automated equipment, kind of connected to whether it's the internet or whether just connected to a network in a factory or something. That's also a trend. Getting more and more equipment connected to the cloud for the primary reason that getting data out of the machine can allow you, if you analyze the data from the machine, can potentially allow you to figure out how to make the machine more efficient, how to produce more effectively, make adjustments to the machine that ultimately will result in more efficiency, better quality products, and obviously more profit for the people who are using the equipment.
Awesome.
So those are some examples.
Okay. PLC and HMI, can you break that down for me?
Sure. So I talked early on about programmable logic controllers is what we manufacture. I mean, we don't call it a programmable logic controller, but that's effectively what it is. And that is the brains of any application. It makes the decisions on what needs to happen when and where in order for a particular process to be automated. Whether that's just controlling a water pump, whether that's controlling a hot water system, whether that's controlling a stadium window or something like that. So that's a programmable logic controller. HMI refers to a human-machine interface. That's really the part of the system that the human, the operator, interfaces with. Generally, it's the part that includes the touchscreen, again, for feedback for how the machine is operating, as well as input from the operator as to what needs to happen next.
I remember when touchscreen first came out, I don't know how they did this, and to me I still don't understand, but in the old days, didn't they, I remember these old pens, they're with these magic notebooks where you can actually you can write something down, and then it's got a camera inside where you can take the picture of that. And I think touchscreen was like that probably back in the olden days. Is that true? Is this true?
Well, all I can give you is my own experience. So when I started back in the 80s,
right,
a long time ago, in the automation industry, the high-tech HMIs, if you will, human-machine interfaces, they were based on CRT-type televisions, and a big one might be like 12 inches or 14 inches CRT embedded in a large stamping press or something, and with a green screen, sometimes even color. That was high technology back then. But obviously, as when the touchscreens started to finally hit the market, a few years later, they finally made their way into industry. But there's been all kinds of user interface type advancements over the years. I remember a similar product to what you're talking about, where you used to have like a pad on the side of your computer, it'd be on your desk, and you'd use a stylus to write on that, and it would just show up on the screen. So you were writing on a pad, and then what the result would end up in the computer. So that was just another input device, not exactly a touch screen, but maybe a precursor to that.
Oh, gotcha. All right. So now another thing that automation is being used for is in buildings.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Okay, well, building automation is, people don't think about the fact that there's a lot of things in buildings that are automated. Of course, the first thing we think of course, is our heating and air conditioning system, right? We have it in our homes. There's a level of automation in our homes, but it's pretty low. Generally, we've got a thermostat, we've got an air conditioner and a furnace that is quasi-automated. Of course, there's more of that being, there's touchscreens in our home now for controlling our furnace, which we didn't have years ago. But in addition to, of course, HVAC systems, there's lighting systems. The light technology these days is LED based. It can be switched on and off. It doesn't have to warm up or anything like that. So that can be controlled. And then you've got in a factory type environment, you've got things like compressed air that is used for tools and things. That you'll have a large compressor that'll serve a whole facility. That's got to be automated. And then one of the fun ones, I can give you a couple fun ones. So as an example, you can call this building automation. Here locally in Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium, right. I think most people know that, of course, in addition to the roof that opens and closes, there's also a giant window wall on one side of Lucas Oil Stadium that they can open and close. When they open it, of course, it lets more fresh air in and it feels more like an outdoor stadium. Well, that window wall is controlled by a Horner touchscreen with a built-in PLC. One of our customers who does stadium-type projects automated that. Another one, I'll tell you that's kind of a fun one, is, you could also think as building automation, is Paul Brown Stadium where the Bengals play. That's a dedicated football stadium. In addition to 10 football games a year, maybe 12 at the max, they might have a Taylor Swift concert or something there as well. But our products are used by one of our customers to set it up to control all the hot water in Paul Brown Stadium. So imagine this, you've got a stadium that sits dormant for months, and then suddenly you've got 50 or 60,000 people that need hot water, and they need it to work, and they need it now, right? For the concession stands and for the bathrooms and you name it. Well, that's tricky in getting a system that can deliver that much hot water yet still work well after sitting dormant for months. So, that's building automation, right? You're automating a building, and it's a tricky application, but the expertise that one of our customers had in dealing with hot water, they were able to take one of our products and utilize it for that application.
Awesome. So, when you were touching up on the Lucas Oil thing, it's like I'm not really, to be honest with you, I'm not really familiar with where things is because I've only lived in the Indianapolis area now for 6 months.
Okay.
So,
welcome to Indianapolis.
Thank you. And it's not really, technically it's in Noblesville, but it's not, but it's still it's still in the Indianapolis area, so to speak. But I never witnessed that. I very rarely ever make trips to Lucas Oil Stadium.
Sure.
I never really witnessed that before. And I thought that was pretty cool.
It is very cool. Yeah, this customer that we have in the Twin Cities area, actually in Minnesota, they've done stadium jobs all over the world and all over the country. And they've used our products for things like the Arizona Cardinals football stadium. The field moves in and out because it's natural grass, and they need the field to be outside to be watered and to get sun, and then they move it in for the football games. That's controlled by some of our equipment. Another fun one is the Houston Astros baseball team. Every time they hit a home run, they have this replica of a steam engine that comes out. It's really electrical. That's controlled by one of our products. So lots of fun projects that customer has done over the years.
Oh, cool. All right. We have about a minute and a half left for this segment.
Okay.
Go ahead and talk to us about talk a little bit about control software.
Sure. So I mentioned the fact that our products, like a lot of products in automation, are highly programmable. They don't do anything when they leave the factory. They have the ability to do a lot of things, but they don't do anything until they're programmed. So control software is pretty much what's required to program the product that you're going to use as the kind of the central brains of your automation project. So at Horner, our philosophy is we provide the control software for free, which is very unique. Most big automation companies, they require either a subscription service or to pay for the software that their customers use to program their products. Our approach is a little bit different. We include some really good software, but we don't charge for it. And so they can use that software for every aspect of automating their application, from the logic for controlling the equipment to the screens that they build with graphics and things like that for the operator, all the configuration for all the different types of sensors and actuators that are involved in the application, and all the networking between multiple devices. That's all handled with the control software.
All right, sounds good. All right. When we come back from this break, we will conclude my conversation with Chuck Ridgeway. Stay with us. Welcome back to Night Talk. I am here again with Chuck Ridgeway. So now we're going to talk a little bit about industrial automation. Tell us about that.
Okay, so really industrial automation just kind of rolls in the automating of industrial applications. Okay, so we've talked a lot about automation today, or I have, about automating things like football stadiums or whatever the case may be, right? Water systems, that sort of thing. So industrial automation really just kind of encompasses automating just any kind of manufacturing process. Okay. You know, whether you're making, you know, some sort of metal product, or whether you're making computers, or whatever it is you're manufacturing, generally industrial automation is just kind of encompasses automating any kind of manufacturing process.
Gotcha. Now, I understand that you yourself are doing a podcast on YouTube. Tell us about it.
Sure. So this all kind of started, you know, first of all, at my company, I was kind of the one that did presentations for years, right? I was a product manager. Talked about it being an automation manager, and communicating with the public is one thing I had to do, and I always did a pretty good job at it. But when we had the pandemic, it became a scenario where we could no longer get in front of our customers on a face-to-face basis because it just, you know, was deadly potentially.
Right.
So at that point, we decided as a company, and our owner basically said, hey, let's see if we can have kind of weekly online events to educate our customers and to tell them about our products. Because we have a highly technical product and it takes a lot of training. So, you know, during the pandemic, we started these weekly webinars. And then over time, it just kind of evolved, you know, it went from just kind of business software webinar type approach to more of a YouTube and live stream type approach. So every week on Tuesdays, we have, you can call it a podcast, you can call it a live stream, you can call it whatever you want. But every week on Tuesdays, we have a technical session where we cover one aspect of using our product in a industrial application, or any application really, whether it's programming the product using the software, whether it is using a product in a certain way for a certain application, maybe controlling the temperature of an oven or something when you're making pizza or making any product, whatever. And we just do that on a weekly basis, and thankfully we have a really good team at Horner that is there to support me for things like editing and some of the content creation and those sorts of things. That makes it possible for us to produce this weekly podcast, if you will. And we've been doing it now since, you know, mid-2020.
Awesome. I just thought of another question that came to mind.
Sure.
How has automation changed since the COVID pandemic?
How has it changed? Well, first of all, it continues to get younger. Okay?
Right.
You know, the users of automation, traditionally, you know, a couple years ago, let's say 3 or 4 years ago, when I went and I talked automation with people, most of the people I was talking to were my age or not a whole lot younger than me. And so one of the things that's happened is my generation is starting to turn the reins over to the next generation. And so one thing that became very clear is the way the next generation wants to receive information on technical products like automation. So they want to be able to get the information, a lot of cases themselves, by watching YouTube videos or doing research online. They don't want to spend a lot of time being in front of people. So by the way that we educate people on automation, that's been, I think, the biggest change I've seen. The other thing I would say is while there was a bunch of work on things like sanitizers and those sorts of things during the pandemic, and rightly so, to kill germs and those sorts of things, some of that has kind of backed off a little bit. So it didn't really end up being kind of a permanent scenario. It was more of a spur of the moment thing. So during the pandemic, there was a lot of emphasis on sterilization and those sorts of equipment, whereas that's kind of died off, and you don't see a lot of that. But a big change is really the way we communicate to people about automation. I'd say that's the biggest change.
Cool. All right. So we still have about 4 more minutes left of the segment.
Okay.
So where can people watch your podcast?
Sure. So effectively, if they go to the Horner APG YouTube channel, okay, APG stands for Automation Product, or what does it stand for? I've only worked there for 30 years. But anyway, you can go to the Horner APG YouTube channel, and you'll find 200 or 300 videos there covering all different aspects of automation. Some of it very much geared towards our products, other very more general purpose. So if you just want to learn more about some of the industry standard communications networks or some of the trends in communication, as an example, we have some of the better podcasts you'll find online that can help you educate on those topics. Things like Modbus and Ethernet IP and MQTT and those sort of buzzwords that mean things to automation people, or people learning about automation that don't necessarily mean a lot to maybe the layman. But yeah, go to the Horner APG YouTube channel.
And then like say, I'm interested in one of these automation topics that we just discussed about tonight.
Sure.
How can we get a hold of you?
Sure. So first of all, if you're interested in automation at all, even if you don't necessarily have a really technical degree, we have openings at Horner Automation for entry-level positions in a whole variety of different areas. So we'd love to have you consider Horner as your employer. We're a pretty good-sized company, but we're family-owned, and we have a lot of fun at work. So I would say that's one thing to consider, joining the Horner team. If you need to get a hold of me, you can always email me at chuck.ridgeway@hornerautomation.com. That's one way you can get me. I'd love to answer any questions you might have.
All right. That is, we got about 2 more minutes left, and I think that's pretty much that's pretty much all I had planned.
Sure.
So, did you want to say something?
Sure. If you have a couple more minutes, I can tell you about a fun application, if that's okay, to kind of fill up the time. So effectively, one of the neat things that we've been working on, kind of with a partner, I can't name the partner, but understandably, right? There's a lot of these automating of vehicles these days, right?
Right.
Self-guided vehicles, remotely controlled vehicles, that sort of thing. So one of the things we've been working on with a partner at Horner Automation is we've been working with a good customer of ours on automating some heavy equipment that's used outdoors for excavating and those sorts of things. So, where the operator of the equipment can use, effectively their phone or a joystick to remotely control the equipment in an environment where it might be a little dangerous for them to be sitting in the cab, if you will. So again, that's one of the kind of more modern, kind of fun things that we've been involved in as another project I thought I'd tell you about.
Okay, cool. All right, so I have a little bit of an honor I have to give you, because this is our second episode on Night Talk. Last week you saw me talk to myself. You are our first official guest. So
Terrific.
You've made history as our first official guest on Night Talk.
It was my pleasure.
So, and I appreciate you coming by and talking to us. We have a tradition that we do at the end of every episode. Carol Burnett, on the old Carol Burnett show, used to do this. During the closing credits of her show, she would have the guests sign an autograph book. So I'm going to let you be the first person to autograph the autograph book. While I say thank you so much for watching, my guest for tonight has been Chuck Ridgeway. I'll be back next week with another guest for you. And until then, for Paul Poteet, Chuck Ridgeway, and myself, and all of us on Night Talk, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Until then, good night.
If you want to be a guest on Night Talk, or if you'd like a DVD copy of tonight's program, send Jacob an email. The email address is jtpile1@aol.com. If ordering a DVD copy of the series, include the air date seen on your screen. Residents outside of Indiana will pay an additional $5 shipping and handling fee.
Hi, this is Jay Dowell reminding you that our guest for next week's Night Talk will be the author of Crossroads, Rhonda Parker Taylor. That's next week on Night Talk. Join us then.
I'm your very tired announcer, Paul Poteet, speaking for Night Talk, a Pile Media Ventures presentation. This program has been pre-recorded.